I'm Krishna Thangavelu, and I head up the Mayflex Middle East Business Unit, and I'm here to talk about smart buildings and specifically focus on what's changed post-COVID, touching upon similar things to what Fahmi spoke about earlier on in the day as well, and also then talk about how one of the products we supply, structured cabling, play a key part in achieving those desired goals. Well, over the past couple of years, COVID-19, geopolitical situations, rising energy costs, various things have happened which has taken a big toll on the world. While they've been all painful for everyone, it is also a time to reflect and learn from those and prepare better for the future and do things more efficiently and build buffer for future challenges that come up as well, which we don't know what they will be. So the message is really clear. We've got to be greener and we've got to become more efficient. Adopting the quote from the famous Mahatma Gandhi, first they ignore, then they laugh, then they fight the change, and eventually you have to win because this change has to happen. So that leads me on to the topic of today, talking about smart buildings. Well, why specifically buildings? Research by UN Environmental Program show that 40% of the energy consumption today is used in buildings. And not just that, 1/3 of the greenhouse emissions today comes from buildings, and they are the largest contributor for greenhouse gas emissions. And that's why it's important to talk about smart buildings and how they can influence and help us get to the goal of being more sustainable, carbon neutral, etc. So how do we do this? We can do this the old way, build more insulation into the buildings, reduce the energy cost. But that's not learning from the past, learning from our mistakes. So let's look at the future and the better way of doing it. And that's by doing it the smart way. Equip your buildings with digital tools so that you can take data from that and improve the energy efficiency of the building. Well, not just that, you could also use those digital tools to improve the overall user experience. And that's where, we've come to the topic of today, which is smart building. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the next few slides. Can get this working? So what's changed in the building post-COVID? Let's look at the office environment. Today, the work approach has changed. We don't all work from office all day long. There is certainly a blended approach. There's a lot of people working from home. And there is also an increased focus and expectation around user experience. That could be your staff. That could be yourself working from home. And there's also an increased focus on collaboration between colleagues, between departments, and between companies. And I think in the panel discussion, Mr. Suresh pointed out as well, that integration, getting all the different stakeholders to work together, that's more prominent now than before COVID. So that's what's changed in the office environment. Now let's look at the retail environment. That's completely changed. I mean, we've seen that through COVID. We all want to sit at home, order stuff, get it delivered. Whether it's lockdown or no lockdown, you still want food and everything else delivered to your home. So there is an acceleration of online purchasing. The traditional brick and mortar stores, even they have had to change their approach. And you've seen things like Amazon Go come out, where there's touchless exit. You walk in and you walk out without even having to touch your credit card. So things like that are changing in the retail environment. And there's also rapid growth of distribution centers as well. Let's not forget that. If you go down Kizad, Dubai South, the amount of warehouses that are there today compared to 4 years ago, I would probably say it's exponentially grown. And then let's look at the education sector. There was a big movement of students pre-COVID from countries like India, certainly from Emirates as well, going abroad to use the facilities in all those fantastic universities overseas. And through COVID, over the last 2 years, students couldn't do that. They've all been at home, going to universities in their hometowns, home countries. So as universities now, they have to do more to attract the talent. It's just simply not enough to have those name and the history behind them. So there's more you need to do to attract the talent. And then let's look at healthcare environment. There is more commitment from the government to deliver quality care, and the demand for quality care is also on the rise as well. So to summarize, the stakeholder expectations and the operating models have been permanently changed. So moving on from that, now that we sort of established what has changed post-COVID, let's look at what do real estate investors think about it. So for them, when Verantrix spoke to multiple entities throughout Europe, they came up with the information that the priorities for real estate investors, the top three are, which is hardly surprising. First one is cost saving. Then you've got health and well-being, that's of the building and of the people that use it. Decarbonizing the building portfolio, so your aim to become net carbon neutral, etc. But what's also interesting is that now you've got a new parameter that's coming in. They are now seeing that a building and being smart and sustainable is a way to attract and retain talent as well. So that's very important for real estate investors. And this is what they see as important for them. So that's for real estate investors. Now moving on from that, what is the user expectation today? Well, I would like to categorize them into 3 different sectors, right? 3 different areas. First one, users expect the building to be smart. They want the experience to be seamless between devices, between the areas that we work from. They certainly want the building or the organization they work for to have a sustainable approach to everything they do. Part of that is the building. And then they also want the building to provide a healthy environment. Now, this is not just the physical well-being, but there's also mental well-being, which unfortunately enough sometimes gets forgotten. So user expectation today is smart, sustainable, and healthy. Those are the 3 areas that users look at. And from there on, if you look at the research that's been conducted over the past 4 years, these 3 areas have been highlighted specifically in the age group of below 35. That's important to note because that's the next 20-25 years. So if we understand that this is the user expectation, we have a chance to do something about it moving forward. So what does this mean to all of us? I think I'm skipping a slide. Yeah. It will change our business operation if it has not done so already. Data is the new oil. Demand for data to make those informed decisions, to inform the stakeholders, to take those meaningful decisions at the right times is exponentially increasing. Data will then be collected from a wide range of devices in the edge. Let's call them the smart sensor networks. From there, they'll then be connected back to the comms room, to those software platforms where those data can be then presented in a meaningful format through a variety of different ways. Through your traditional structured cabling, wireless infrastructure, you've got network ports in the switches in the comms room, you've got wireless gateways, cloud-hosted platforms, etc. And we believe that, and that's my personal view as well, before a building can be sustainable and healthy, it's got to be smart. Because unless you're not going to measure what you're able to do, you're not going to get to the end goal. So to be able to measure what you want to achieve, you need your building to be smart. And to understand whether there are standards around the world, are there benchmarks there that help us get to these goals? Are you able to benchmark your building against somebody else's, etc.? You got various standards that are around there. You got the Wired. I'm seeing a lot of consultants in the UAE using this, posting on LinkedIn that they're now Wired certified, which is all good to see. You got International Wellbeing Institute from the US as well. You got Reset, which originally started off in China, probably about 10-15 years ago, starting to monitor the air pollution, air quality outside the building. Then they realized that they wanted to do something about air quality inside the building. That led on to it growing bigger, and today to be able to benchmark the overall quality of the building. And then you also got BREEAM from the UK as well. So those are some of the benchmarks that are available. Well, these are good tools to use because they are now able to certify your buildings to these 3 key areas. How smart is your building? How sustainable and how healthy is your building? And it's a great tool for real estate investors also because they can now use it as a key advantage against other properties, etc., if they don't choose to do that. So these are some of the standards available. Yeah. So we looked at real estate investors' objectives. We looked at what the user expectations are, and we're seeing what benchmarks are available currently to try and achieve those or benchmark your buildings. Now, looking at the sort of the short-term future, looking at the investment trends in IoT and smart buildings, there's been a research work done by Quocirca, and what they tell us is that top factors that are influencing the investment is cost saving, which goes without saying. Everything we do should try and do it efficiently, financially as well. Improving the health and safety, and also the occupant comfort and well-being. Again, largely linking to smart, sustainable, and healthy. And today, where is that investments going in? We're seeing a lot of investment in smart heating, lighting, touchless access control, and voice assistance. What are the different type of products and technology that's being used? Environmental sensors. We got an array of companies here. I'm sure they are displaying some of these products as well. You got environmental sensors, security monitoring. You got Pelco coming up to talk later on in the day. Such a device, a CCTV camera, is an IoT device. You can use it for a variety of functions. You also got energy monitoring and usage as well, of which companies here spoke about it as well. And today, where I am in the industry, and my partner, Sipka, my premier partner in UAE, is in the networking communication sector. So to get involved in smart buildings, what do we need to do? What products do we need to look at? Certainly need to look at sensors and actuators, because those are the devices that's going to collect those data from the edge for you. Then you need to be getting involved and getting a know-how in the software platforms that are available to make sense of that data that's being presented back. And let's look at the sensors to start with. These sensors are likely to be on a standalone network. They're not going to be on the typical corporate network. These sensors can be used to collect a whole host of data. And what you collect is up to the requirement of the building owner and the user experience that's expected, and to achieve the goal of being sustainable and healthy as well. So you can use it to collect the occupancy data. You can use it for people counting. I mentioned about Pelco CCTV. You can use that as a people counting device, hence an IoT device as well. You can use it to measure air quality, energy, temperature, humidity, and space utilization as well. You would then connect them back to your comms room using a mixture of wired and wireless connectivity. It doesn't always have to be wired. Typically, these sensors today are using very, very low data bandwidth and very low power compared to what is available commonly today in the past. So having said that, when you're trying to collect more and more complex type of data, more data from the same sensors, then at that stage, we believe that that sensor would require higher power and higher data, and hence it will need to be a wired device. And there will be more high-level cabling needed. This could be your traditional Category 6, Category 6A cabling, or there is also new technologies coming in with single-pair Ethernet, using a single pair rather than 4-pair, which is sufficient to connect the IoT devices. There's new ecosystems being formed around low power and low data transfer methods. One example of that I've come across personally is Enocean. It's a German company, and they come up with a new protocol as well. Worthwhile Googling them, reading up a bit more on that. Fantastic technology they've got. And looking at the physical layer, what does this look physically on a construction site or in a building? Yeah, you got the data collection devices in the edge. You got cameras, you got sensors. Pardon me. Then you're connecting them through wired or wireless infrastructure. It could be using wired infrastructure, Enocean, wireless, or LTE 5G data connectivity as well. You got the gateways, which then transport the data back into the comms room and where the data is eventually stored. So that's what a typical sort of physical layer would look like. If you want to look at it in the form of a schematic, this has been borrowed from a company called Prezac in the UK. You will have their sensors in the edge, connected through the gateways through a protocol like Enocean, through a combination of methods. It could be wired, Wi-Fi, or LTE, 4G, 5G, etc. Then goes back into the platform. One parameter, one abbreviation I would like to touch upon here is MQTT. This is a transmission protocol that's used specifically for IoT devices. Your internet protocol is typically HTTP, but for IoT, we are seeing utilization of MQTT. The reason for that is this protocol is specifically designed more for data transfer and rather than for document transfer. Hence, it's lightweight, easy to use, allows bidirectional information exchange as well. So MQTT is a protocol you will hear more and more of when you're getting into smart buildings and IoT as well. And then you get to the smart platform. This is where data starts to be presented in a format that the landlord can use to understand how their building is performing. Energy management is a topic that's been spoken about throughout the day today, so landlords could use for that. It could be used for work order management, various reporting, digital signage, etc. And then the key thing, which is on the user side, it helps to overall improve the user experience. It could be used for a whole host of things like booking spaces. You can record activity levels, and you could find spaces in the office as you walk in, hot desking system, etc. That are all part of one small subset of smart building. So that's how smart platforms help the landlord and the users as well. From that, I would like to talk up finally about structured cabling, which is one of the products we sell, and how we see the whole discussion around smart building is driving the market for us. The first thing is remote powering. I mentioned earlier, smart devices and IoT devices do not have to be connected through a wire, but the more complex the data being collected it is, then it has to be a wired connectivity. So in that sense, and in that areas, you would need remote powering as well. So there is an increased utilization of structured cabling. There's no requirement for local power outlets. There's also a power saving element here. There's been research work done which shows that a typical IoT device draws around 8 watts of power. Give or take a few watts, but you get the idea. But if you're using traditional power, you're going to deliver more power than what's needed. Whereas if you use PoE power, you could get them down to 15 watts of power with a PoE switch, etc. So a calculation shows that today, if you're looking at 100 million plus deployed devices out there, traditional power versus PoE power, you're saving 60 million kilowatt hours of energy saving every single year. And that's one of the advantages of PoE, and that's where, again, structured cabling comes in. And looking at additional smart devices, we're all here talking about smart buildings. So that means more and more smart devices are getting added on to your cabling network. Today, there is an estimated 36 billion IoT devices connected around the globe. In the next 4 years, they're expecting that to more than double and have around 75 billion devices. And a significant portion of them, we believe, would need remote powering, would need PoE, and needs to be on the network. And again, that's we see as a driver for structured cabling. It's another reason why passive infrastructure has to be taken a lot more seriously than what's happening today. And what infrastructure would you need for this? Do you need anything different? Well, the good news is that, largely speaking, you don't need any special infrastructure for these IoT devices. As your standard category 6A cabling would work. The only new technology that's getting added in is single pair Ethernet. This is now available as a standard, and it can be used where it is required. So rather than using a 4-pair cable, you can use single pair Ethernet cables specifically for these IoT devices. From a fiber perspective and from a cabinet enclosure perspective, largely similar. Because of the type of network it is, we believe it'll be largely multi-mode fiber cabling. But again, if the distances are longer, you've got your traditional single mode to use as well. Those are all standard as what you use today. So those are the infrastructure products you would need. And us as a manufacturer contributing to the sector, to the quality and the performance of it, we've got all of our products certified to the latest PoE standards. So our connectivity on the structured cabling has been tested for the last, I think, 5-6 years now, to the latest IEC standard, which is now testing your connectivity to 2.5 ampere rating per connector, and thereby providing sufficient power at the edge to power up these devices. And I would like to conclude by saying that while smart buildings provide a fantastic avenue for new business generation, I think more importantly, it provides another way for all of us to contribute to the planet we all call home. Leaving you with a quote from a past UN Secretary General, could be a cliche term as well. There may be plan Bs, but there are no planet B. So let's all stick to this. Thank you.